today was a constructive debate. I think it outlined the real substantive differences between two very different visions for California. And I think the fair question now is, where do we go from here? And where we go from here is to come back tomorrow morning and see if we can bridge our differences. And that's been our intent and our goal all along. And I think the great challenge here, when you really want to sum it all up, is what I said earlier on the floor, that we're not starting from we're not starting on an even keel here. In other words, we're not starting from 2007 with the $100 billion budget. We're starting after a bloodletting last year. And so the difference between $2 billion of cuts, additional cuts, is significant. And, we tried today, and I think we successfully at least described what the impact of that difference would be. And as the Republicans have very successfully used the power of no to draw their line, I would say an unfair line over the course of the years, because there's only two ways to balance a budget: you cut or you raise revenue. We too now are drawing a line. It's not the same kind of line that they've drawn. It's not a line that says we won't cut. It's a line that says we won't go beyond what we think is absolutely necessary and beyond what we know will cause significant harm to the economy and to people. And so I will do what I've done practically every day since June the 1st, and that is I'll come to work early tomorrow morning and be ready to engage with the governor and or the Republican leaders to see if we can get this done. But the urgency that I feel, the urgency that my colleagues feel, doesn't mean that we settle at any price. And it's not to win an argument. I could care less about winning an argument or winning a political point, because frankly, I think the politics are bad for everybody. It's about exactly what it is we've described. Those cuts that go too deep on child care and assistance to work and education and in-home supportive services. And I think we laid it out there on the floor. And now we need to see if the governor and the Republicans want to negotiate maybe in a different way, which is, all right, we hear you on cuts. Here's some of the other things we'd like to talk about. Regulatory relief. Certainly we've said we're willing to talk about pensions. We continue to say we're willing to talk about pensions. Budget reform, to revisit, the rainy day fund kind of concept. We're willing to talk about that. So I'm hopeful, and I would urge the administration and the Republicans to see if we might change the focus of the negotiations to get off the deepest of deep cuts and see what else we can agree upon that would allow us to reach a final product.
Senator Wolk mentioned a tax committee hearing tomorrow, in which you're going to examine the governor's tax reform. Is your tax swap also going to be up for review at that hearing?
Not at tomorrow's hearing, but as I've promised you, and I always live up to my promises, we are going to release an updated version of our tax reform proposal. We didn't want it to interfere with today's debate, but we will do that, and we will do it before the end of the week. Today's Tuesday.
Last week you said that this vote would give you sort of a view of the lay of the land, where everyone's at, give you sort of a basis for going forward, knowing where people are at. What did you learn today from the vote?
Well, I found it interesting that Senator Blakesley voted against the Republican proposal. That was interesting to me. Which means, I interpret to mean that, he rejects the wholesale elimination of these traditional and essential public investments in California. And I also, well, I don't know that I learned what I didn't already know, which is that in the end, the Republican argument, in my view, is largely rhetorical. Because when you get down to when you try to get down to the detail and you ask the questions that we asked today, what is the economic impact of the level of cutting you suggest? They don't really have a good answer. What is your idea on tax reform? They don't really have an answer. In fact, the only proposal that the governor has put out on tax reform was rejected by the Republicans itself, the so-called Kotze Commission. So I think the challenge is always, and it's easier when you're the minority party, the challenge is to force them to drill a little bit deeper than the rhetorical points and examine the differences between the level of cutting that they are seeking and what we think is the right thing to do.
Now that you know where Republicans stand during this debate, how close in terms of time are we to an actual agreement, would you say?
I don't know,
Weeks?
Nanette. I don't know.
I'm just joking.
I tell you, when there is I think once there is a fundamental understanding of where we stand on the issue of disinvestment, excessive disinvestment in California, I think this could come together easily, relatively easily and relatively fast. But if the governor and the Republicans are going to continue to demand $500 a kid reduction in per pupil spending and the elimination of child care and further deep grant cuts to the Best Assistance to Work program in the country, then this is going to take a while longer, and that pains me. It's the proverbial catch-22. The public is right to be frustrated at everybody that the work isn't done. There are significant structural impediments to getting it done. The 2/3 vote and the fact that, as I said, we are not starting from scratch here. We're starting from a very different base, and their demands are too much. And so the catch-22 is the understandable frustration of the public versus settling on terms that we believe would be bad for the economy and bad for the people of California. And, this tax, let me just try to speak as clear and as logical as I can. Democrats do not want to raise taxes. I do not want to raise taxes. Don't think it's a good thing. Don't think it's a good thing in and of itself. But governing is about choices. And if you can only cut so much, because to cut lower than that would harm the very cause you espouse, I'm not talking about the other side, then how do you make up the difference? I mean, the best thing the governor's been able to come up with is some leaked plan on borrowing from PERS. And I think it's a bad idea, and I don't think it's legal. So where is there has to be some there when it comes to how to have a whole solution to a $19 billion problem.
If this was a worthy debate to have, why did it take so long to have it? Why not have this debate, have these votes earlier in the session?
I think it's a fair question. I think you work to try to reach an agreement. You reach to try to find common ground and consensus. And if you go too early with the public debate, there's the risk that you're going to harm what can be delicate negotiations. If you remember last year, all of the difficult decisions that were made in that budget, to have gone out and debated those publicly before shaking hands and agreeing to the framework probably would have killed the framework, which was painful but necessary. And so, in this instance now we're to a point where there's certainly no harm, and I think there's some value in airing what everybody knows to be the difference, but in a public and in a civil way. And, I'm sorry, even though it's, we all go through the same thing, whether on your side of the ledger or my side, every single year. But debating on the floor of the legislature is an appropriate part of the process, and it gives members the opportunity to express their views to their constituents, and it also does give the public an understanding, and you an understanding, of where the differences lie, and maybe we'll create some helpful suggestions for how we bridge the gap.
Senator Hollingsworth has said that he doesn't really see any progress being made until the Democrats sort of let up on their opposition to deeper cuts and more cuts. Is that going to happen anytime soon, and do you see any progress being made?
The progress is way too slow. So I think we both we share that perspective. No, I don't think that there's great progress being made. And I can only tell you that I, as one leader, I feel the urgency. I'm willing to make necessary compromises. We have done so in the past. We've been very analytical about the difference between their cut level and the cut level we think is acceptable. And so it's an impasse over not petty politics. It's an impasse over what's real. So we'll see where it goes, but I'll be here tomorrow. Okay?
What do you think the chances that this is going to spill past the end of October?
Into the election?
Up to the election.
Possible, but certainly not my desire, not my intention. And I know it's not the intention or the desire of the speaker either. I don't see the politics, and I don't see good politics in delay on either side. And it's you feel in these positions, I do, is great sense of responsibility. That's why I call it a bit of a catch-22. Need to get this done, but we can't get it done on terms that we think are wrong. And I guess the other side feels to some degree the same way. I would argue, though, that we are more forthright in presenting real solutions that may be controversial, but at least add up. They talk about a level of cutting that, despite their vote today, I'm not really sure they live by. And that doesn't even fill the entire hole.
So do you think there was progress made today?
I think there was progress. I thought it was cathartic. Yeah. I thought, I think it was necessary. It's necessary for people to debate. It's a good thing. I think it now allows us to resume some form of leader-to-leader negotiations that where we explore every possibility of trying to get this done on reasonable terms.
You just used the word impasse here. I mean, everybody seems to be dug in at this point, digging in deeper from the debate. What do you think actually moves this? Where's an end game here?
I don't know. I as I said, I would urge the administration and the Republicans that maybe we consider a different, that we shift the focus a little bit of the debate. Governor's talked about a lot of things that he, thinks are important that we've said we're willing to talk about. Well, maybe we should talk about some of those things and recognize that a whole package could include some significant reforms while minimizing the level of cuts.